NordVPN is becoming more than just a VPN. Threat protection will guard your device against malicious websites, malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, even if you're not connected to a VPN server at the time. Step up your cybersecurity and stay safe.
Ready to hop in the 6-4 and cruise around the blocks? There's a storm coming to the underworld and the heat is on. Take over the blocks and call the shots. It's time to hustle or get hustled. What's it gonna be? Stay sharp. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Don't let them catch you slipping. Only real gangsters thrive in the dope wars world.
Hi everybody, this is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto, although not really about crypto in this video. And I should tell the truth, because I cover crypto and politics. And the occasional human interest story, and this might be a human interest story, but with a nudge to politics. I'm joined by Alex Christoforou from the Duran. Now, before I introduce him, please subscribe. So, is it bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey? That's where you get most of my material. bit.ly/CryptoRich3Speak. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't come over to Odyssey because of YouTube censorship. Oh, by the way, you can also find me on Rumble, but I don't post everything on Rumble. Hey, Alex, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Thank you, Crypto. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's at last we speak, and I know we do these occasionally. And I'm very, very blessed and fortunate and grateful that once a month I get to record with Tom Luongo and your partner, Alexander Mercouris.
Yes.
Really, really great conversations.
Yes, we got to get Tom back on the Duran. Actually, I saw someone requesting him to come back on.
Okay.
We've done a couple of shows with Tom as well. I think like 3 or 4 live streams, yeah.
Yeah. And what I appreciate is, actually, what I think, because we may be joined by Garland Nixon, I don't know, right? But what I appreciate about you and Alexander Mercouris and Tom Luongo and Garland, and even myself, is that we do have different perspectives on stuff.
Yeah, I think everyone has different perspectives, but
we don't cancel each other.
No. I mean, that's I actually got this question the other day about someone asked, "Do you and Alexander ever disagree?" And I was just like, "Yeah, we do." But I mean, our show format is not a debate; it's a conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a debate, okay. But there's a lot of debate shows on YouTube. I mean, a lot. It's flooded with debate shows. Ours is a conversation.
Yeah,
a civilized conversation.
Civilized conversation. Very, very smart analysis by Alexander Mercouris, who I don't know how many sources he pulls through every single day, and then you with your incisive questions. And at first, when I first discovered you and started listening to you, I thought, oh, it's all Alexander Mercouris, and then I got, no, wait a minute, it's Alex Christoforou as well, because you're the one who'll ask the prescient questions. And then offer your own analysis, and it'll take it somewhere. Very, very smart. And
it's a good conversation.
It's a great conversation.
Like what we're having right now. It's a good conversation.
Yeah,
that's always interesting.
Yeah, and we haven't even gone to it. I'll have all the links below, locals.duran.com. You got your channel. Alexander Mercouris have his own channel. And then there's the Duran where you do videos jointly, and you have a range of guests on your channel. And I was saying to you before we started recording that obviously you need to start up several more channels because you don't have enough to do.
Right.
That's right.
We need more. Yes.
That's right. I hope you don't mind me saying this, right? But Alexander Mercouris does all the research and the analysis. I know you do some research and analysis, but you're the one that does the editing and the uploading and the setting it all up.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey, quite a learning process. But I have to be honest, I'm very grateful that I took on the tasks of editing and all that, because it's really opened up a whole new world for me. Okay. Editing and camera and filming and even being outdoors. It's very challenging filming outdoors, but I'm also very thankful for that because it's opened my eyes up to a whole different world.
You mean the world of editing and stuff?
Editing, filming, everything, audio, everything. I mean, I've got a newfound respect for editors, people in graphic design and editing and film and audio production and film production and people that understand cameras and experts in these areas. I mean, it's a never-ending genre. And I mean, people that know these things, like really, like are professionals in these. I'm just like, I'm amazed now at how they know all of these things, because I'm still very, very much a novice. But it's such an interesting space.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to talk to you about was how did it begin? How did you and Alex meet? How did you start the Duran? What's the story of the Duran? Rather than sort of cover the sort of material that you guys cover so well.
Politics.
Yeah, that's right. But as a social worker, as a trained and qualified social worker, I thought I'd get into the human element. What's going on with this, with these two?
We met in 2000, like late 2016, early 2017. I'm not sure the exact date, but I was in Moscow on a potential business opportunity, business trip. And Alexander was also in Moscow speaking with the same person about a potential business partnership, business trip. And we were taking the meeting. It happened, this guy scheduled us back to back, kind of, but he scheduled us at Parkovka, Gorky Park. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Gorky Park with William Hurt. Very good movie. Old movie, but very good movie. While this guy was out, I think he was taking a phone call, or I don't know, he was just doing some other stuff. And Alexander was there. I was there. We just started talking because he was Greek. I'm Greek, and we were like, oh, okay. We started talking about the politics in Greece, and that was it. And then about 6 months, my timeline is off. Maybe 6 months to a year later, I was approached by two other people to start up a blog, a news publication, and to write for it. Pretty much, it was just to write for it, to write articles and help set up the blog, because I come from a tech background. And so I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds cool. And this was also this was when I was living in Moscow then at the time. When I met Alexander, I was just visiting. Then I decided to live there for about a year. I was there. And we started talking, and these guys were like, yeah, we're going to get Alexander as well to be part of this, and he's going to write articles, because he was an established writer, journalist writer, geopolitical journalist writer. And that was the Duran. That was the blog was the Duran, the blog. But there was no media, no YouTube, nothing. And I didn't even know Alexander, to be quite honest. I know him. I rarely talked to him. I was just writing articles, posts. He was writing articles, and that was pretty much the extent of our interaction.
What sort of stuff were you writing about? And what
geopolitics.
And he was also writing about geopolitics.
Yeah, my stuff was more short form. Like I was more the day-to-day, just day-to-day news, and he was more in-depth analysis, like longer form, in-depth analysis.
Which is a little bit like how your channels are, because your videos tend to be shorter, and you'll cover several items, do daily updates, but he will go into depth into a particular issue. Okay, and then why? One of the things I've always wondered. So the website is theduran.com. Why the name the Duran?
That's the only secret that I keep to myself, to be quite honest. To be quite honest.
I'm sure I'm not the first person.
It was a .com. I will say this: it was a .com domain that was available, and my thinking, back in my previous life, whenever I would create websites or do any type of web projects, tech projects, I was always on the lookout for .coms. To me, it was always, if you're going to do something, make it a .com, right? So that was kind of one of the lines of thinking for the name.
Okay, and I take it that's just a partial answer, right?
Yeah, that's just a partial. But there's nothing that's crazy about it, to be quite honest. The story, I don't know. It's kind of stayed with me, and I just haven't divulged it to anyone yet. So I just figured, okay, I might as well just keep it as my story, and maybe one day I'll explain it.
That air of mystique, like the secret formula to Coca-Cola or
EFT. Believe me, it's not that. It's not that. It's not that sexy of a story or anything, but
Okay, so then when did you start doing the videos?
We did the videos around, like me and Alexander, we dabbled around doing videos from the blog, like just doing, but it wasn't YouTube, it was more like Facebook stuff. And every now and then, we would do like a video here and there. It would go on Facebook, and it's nothing to write home about. But I think like the end of 2000, or the summer of 2018, 19, I want to say. Once again, my timeline is a little messed up. We were, the blog wasn't this blog business. Creating a publication, like a web publication, was was a silly idea. I mean, it was, there's no future in it, to be quite honest. You write an article, maybe you get 100 people that read that article, and maybe you get like 3 or 4 comments, and then that's it. You're not going to, build a career on this unless you work for maybe a big, the dailymail.co.uk or something like that. Okay. There you can make a career of being a writer, a news writer, but trying to do your own thing, it wasn't getting us anywhere. And so one day I just thought to myself, I was in Cyprus, and I thought to myself, let me try the video thing. And I did a couple of videos, and one video did really well. And then I did another video, and it did really, really well. Well.
This was just you right now, right?
Just me, yeah. Actually, I was in a coffee shop with my laptop and the camera and headphones, and that was it. And I just stepped outside of the coffee shop onto the terrace. I did a video about Putin and Soros. I remember it's still there. Yeah. It's got millions of views, and I don't know, it went viral. I don't know what happened, but and I did some other videos, and I was like, this is interesting. This is an interesting medium. I said, I know nothing about it, but it's interesting. And I just took the initiative to speak with Alexander, someone who I really didn't know. And I said, Alexander, would you be interested in perhaps doing a kind of interview, news video thing? I said, and see if we like it, if you like it, if I like it. He said, sure. I said, yeah, let's try it. Let's try it out. He says, this writing stuff's not going anywhere. Alexander's like, this writing stuff is not going anywhere. He's like, I'm writing articles and no one's reading them. It's like spending all this time researching and all this time putting together an article, and he's structuring it, and he's taking a week to put these amazing articles together, like amazing analysis. But, no one's really reading it except for, some people who are in our circles, say they're like praising him. Incredible analysis, Alexander. But these are guys that are in our very, small circle of geopolitical, intellectuals. We did it. There was chemistry. I mean, we got along, and we just said, okay, let's do this. And that was it. And we've just been doing it every day. We've been very consistent. I mean, I'm the type of person that when I do something and I enjoy it, I am consistent as I don't stop.
You're a machine, Alex. You're a machine.
I don't stop. Yeah, I'm committed. I'm a very committed person. It's tough to get me to commit, but when I commit, my whole being is in it. My whole being.
Right. That's it. Okay. And then I found you at some point when it was just you and Alex doing the Duran videos with that channel. And I just want to say, anybody who's not watched this, well, I can't imagine there's many people who are watching this and don't know about you and Alexander Mercouris, but the analysis is just spectacular, just absolutely spectacular. And one of the things I appreciate, apart from the chemistry between both of you and how your questions deepen the inquiry and the analysis, and then you might offer something yourself that opens it up a bit more, is I do notice how Alexander Mercouris, his commentary is the kind of commentary there used to be, certainly in the serious media in the UK.
Yes.
The situation
happened to the UK.
Yeah, like the mainstream media, the Guardian, like say, okay, this is argument X, this is anti-X, right? And this is another perspective on it, and this is what we think. I'm just for an example, Putin's annexation speech, which I listened to, and I looked at an article from Al Jazeera, which was like, this is his speech, and here are some segments. Fine. And then you can pick and choose. No commentary, just bits that they picked out. And then there was the Guardian's analysis of it, which was awful, absolutely awful. It was like, this is the rantings of somebody who's deranged. He talked about this that had no basis or had nothing like that. It's almost like what they're communicating is, don't bother to listen to him. We'll tell you what you need to think about it. We'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
And then the way that they dismissed it is like, well, nobody's going to want to listen to the rantings of a madman. And then it's always the West way that, everybody who resists Western hegemony is a madman. They are unhinged and dangerous.
Propaganda. It's pure propaganda.
Complete propaganda. And then what's great, bringing it back to you and Alexander, is that your analysis isn't that. Because I'm really conscious of the fact, I noticed that Alexander Mercouris says, this is my opinion. He'll separate his opinion from what's known facts. And where he speculates, he says, I'm speculating here. Yeah. And then it's funny because it's kind of like what I do as a child protection social worker. I never see abuse happen, but I have to draw inferences. And sometimes there isn't the definite evidence because there isn't a mark on a child, but I have to draw inferences from what everybody else is saying and how the child is behaving and stuff. So I can't go around saying, no, he did it. He definitely did it, unless I can actually back it up with independent verifiable evidence. So I appreciate that I suppose that intellectual honesty of the analysis. Plus also you don't demean your listener, which I think the mainstream media does now. Yeah. You're too stupid to work it out for yourself. You know, you voted for Brexit. You must be really thick. We'll tell you. You know, the Londonista, middle-class Guardianista faction will tell you. Farage is a racist. Trump sent out mean tweets. We'll tell you. So.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's. I think you're spot on, and I think it's arrogant and demeaning that when the mainstream media does that. Because one thing that I've realized doing the videos and interacting with many of our viewers is that our viewers are many times a lot more knowledgeable than we are, and they actually add to our analysis. You know, you learn things by listening to people and by taking in different opinions and listening to different experts in different areas. You know, we have people that listen to us who are engineers and who are fluent in different languages or live in different areas or have expertise in sciences or diplomacy or a wide range of different areas. So, I mean, they add a lot more to our analysis. Military experts, for example, they add a lot to our analysis. You know, they kind of give us a different view of what we're thinking, or they sometimes confirm what we're thinking. You know, sometimes they put us on the right path. You know, we're thinking, you know, yeah, is Russia's military move? It looks like Russia's doing this or Ukraine's doing that. And then we'll get like a message from a viewer who says, okay, I served for the UK military, and I'm telling you, this is what Russia's doing. And we're like, okay, we are on the right path. You know, we are seeing it correctly.
Yeah. And then I suppose you have access to all these sort of contexts, formal and informal.
Most of it's informal.
I suppose, informal.
It's so informal. Yeah, it's the internet. It's, you know, emails and messaging boards and locals, and you know, I'm not on social media. I'm on VContact. That's pretty much it. You know, you know, it's different ways that you absorb the information. You know, it's coming to you from all different angles.
Yep. And then all the guests that you have, like Garland will put a particular spin on something. Tom Luongo will provide something else. Robert Barnes will provide something else and stuff, right?
Exactly.
And then you get kind of, it all goes into the pot, into the analysis.
Yeah, you get it, you synthesize it, and you come up with what you hope is an accurate picture, what you hope.
Yeah. Okay. So then carrying with the story of the Duran, right? So you got the Duran.com, you got your joint channel, you've got Alex Christoforou and Alexander Mercouris. Where's it all going to end? When's channel 4 and 5?
I don't know if there's going to be no 4 or 5. The only goal that I have right now, me as Alex, part of the Duran Alex, is I would just like to travel more to show more cities.
Right.
That I would like to do. I would like to do.
I've said this to you off camera, right? I'm not going to say on camera, so it'll be recorded. But when you make it to London, you let me know beforehand.
Yeah.
Because the restrictions are gone, right? And we'll go.
I know.
Yeah. Hurry.
London's on my list. I've got so many countries that are on my list that I want to get to, and I just haven't had the opening. Like I haven't had my mind clear either to say, okay, now things are a little bit in a lull. Things are quieting down just a little bit. You know, a week or two. So now I can start to plan like 5 or 6 different countries that I'm going to go to.
Okay, and of course you'll want to come to London because you want to meet up with Alexander Mercouris. I know you met him in Greece a couple of months ago. So great those videos you did together.
Yeah, I would love to go back. I used to go to London so often, and then everything hit. You know, and it kind of throws you off. You know, That 2-year period kind of throws your whole groove off, where you're saying, okay, I go to London often, I visit Spain a bunch, and I like going to these places. And then you get that 2-year thing, and you're just kind of like, how do I get back in the groove after what happened? Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Well, you can come back into the groove in London, right? Soon. Okay. Now, I want to do a little bit of political analysis, because something big did happen today, which was the bombing of the bridge that connects Crimea with Russia. And I've only seen headlines. I saw a brief article in Zero Hedge about it, but it happened much about 12 hours ago, or maybe a bit longer. And
6 a.m. local time. 6
a.m. local time, right? So it would have been nighttime. It would have been 4 a.m. UK time, right? So I didn't even know what to ask you about it, but now what, Alex?
I mean, now what? Look, the bridge is open again.
Yep.
The bridge is open. It's got, from what I understand, it's reverse. The vehicles are moving in a reverse direction, but there is civilian traffic. So there are cars that are crossing the bridge, but I think it's one lane in a reverse direction. And the train is working because it had a railway line. Now, that was the important part as far as getting supplies from Russia to Crimea. The important part was the rail access. That was opened at 8 p.m. local time. So from 6 a.m. when it happened to 8 p.m., they got the rail back and running as well. So the damage, from what I understand, was more on the car infrastructure than the rail infrastructure, from what I understand. But this is a big escalation. If you want my opinion, this is a big escalation. No, well, it's a very symbolic attack as well.
Yeah, it's an assault on Russian territory.
Well, yeah, it's an assault on Russian territory, and you're attacking the symbol of what connects Russia to Crimea. This is the symbolic bridge, the connection of these two areas.
Yeah, and it's civilian infrastructure as well.
It's civilian infrastructure, which
is a violation of international law. Not that any of the warmongering nations in the West care about that, because Yemen, Britain and the US provided logistics and weapons and intelligence for the Saudis to destroy hospitals and schools in Yemen. And we know what the US have done in Iraq and Libya, reduced Iraq and Libya. And I like to comment, being Pakistani, that Barack Obama dropped more drones, more bombs on Pakistan in his first 100 days of office than George Bush did in 8 years. And the US wasn't at war with Pakistan officially. And then, of course, there's the Afghanistan, all the wedding parties that were killed. So for the West to do this, it's no big deal. Always dropping bombing civilian infrastructure.
Well, I remember Barack Obama, didn't he make a comment when he was president, something along the lines of, I wake up and the first thing I do in the morning is I sign my drone kill list, or something like that. I don't know if I'm getting the quote right.
No, it was a kill list.
He said something like that. Yeah. And then he had the statement, something like, we bombed some folks.
Yeah.
I forgot the context of it, to be quite honest. But yeah, he was always saying stuff like,
but he didn't send mean tweets, though, Alex.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't send mean tweets. Handsome, articulate, smooth, venal. Because one of the things that, I don't know if people know, I'm sure you know this, right? That he ordered the execution of 4 American citizens without habeas corpus, including a 16-year-old. That was on the kill list. Yep. Go drop a bomb on this 16-year-old kid who's an American citizen without being found guilty of any crime.
He was a horrible, horrible president.
It was smooth-talking assassin. So, but no mean tweets, eh? That is the worst crime of all.
No mean tweets. He hung out with Hollywood guys. He played basketball with George Clooney, and he went on the talk shows, and that was all cool. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
But you know what it is. I believe it is a verse. I'm not sure if it is a verse. I believe it is a verse in the Bible. I'm not sure, but it's something along the lines of, the violence that you give out is the violence that eventually comes back.
Right.
Something like that.
Buddhist karma as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like a karma type of thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a karma type of thing where, after a while, all of this violence that you're exporting, eventually it comes back home.
Yep. And then in contrast to Putin, because Russia hasn't done anything. We got these 4 regions that have voted to join the Federation, the Russian Federation. They're now part of the Russian Federation, and I've not heard anything about the votes being corrupted. I've not come across anything like that.
Well, I think the collective West says it's a sham referendum. I mean, trust.
But I mean, in terms of sometimes that happens in certain third world countries or whatever, right? Where I know it's happened in Pakistan in elections where people are bribed to vote a particular way, right? Nothing. I've not heard any noise like that about these referenda, that they were fair and people got to vote in private and that was it, and they voted to join Russia. Why wouldn't you? Because the Ukrainians have been bombing us for 8 years. Why would we want to be with them?
The Ukrainians unleashed hell on the Russian speakers.
Yeah,
in Ukraine, an 8-year hell. That's the truth. They, it was so bad for them, and they're always lecturing everybody about inclusivity and diversity and all of these things, while Ukraine was barring people from speaking their language, the Russian language. I mean, in the east of Ukraine, you weren't allowed to even utter a word in Russian. Otherwise, you were fined or arrested or God knows what. If you were working at a restaurant, you were not allowed to speak Russian, even though that was their language. I mean, they censored Russian media, they censored Russian political parties, they broke away from the Russian Orthodox Church. I mean, and then of course you had the constant bombing for 8 years. I mean, it's a hatred of a culture.
Yep. And here we go. I was talking to a friend of mine in the summer and stuff who was I consider a sort of metro-centric London Guardianista sort of guy. And I said to him, I've never known when it comes to a war that the West has been on the right side of history. Iraq, Libya, Serbia.
Yeah, the recent.
It's not happened. It's not happened, certainly since all the time I've been interested in politics, since I've been an adult, all my adult life.
Serbia was one of the game changers for me. Iraq won, and Serbia. Those two conflicts were the game changers, because in Iraq won, and in Serbia, that's where you really saw the manipulation and the propaganda. The little girl testifying, saying they were taking the babies out of incubators and they were throwing them on the cold, floor. I mean, that testimony for Iraq won. I mean, that's where you were like, crap. This is they're really working the soft media power now, and it worked. And then in Serbia, the same thing. In Serbia, so Iraq, what did they do in Iraq? Iraq, they really perfected the demonization of one man. That's when they really started to say, we could destroy a country. We can get people on board for the destruction of a country if we can just demonize an individual. And that individual then represents the entire country. And everyone's hatred for that individual will carry over to the hatred of that country, at least the green light to invade that country. So that was Saddam. Serbia was where they really started to fine-tune the demonization of a culture and a society, the Serbs. And I remember the testimonies from various White House officials and congressional officials. The Serbs are to blame. The Serbs did it. The Serbs started this war. And Bill Clinton, I remember Bill Clinton's speech. He said it outright. The Serbs are the enemy. The Serbs are to blame. No one else is at fault. They are the bad guy. The Serbs. So those two conflicts is where they really, and now they've merged them. Now they've gotten the perfection of the hatred of a culture, along with getting everyone's focus on that one person, whether it's Gaddafi or Assad or Putin, or tomorrow it could be MBS, Saudi Arabia.
And yesterday, metaphorically speaking, it was the Muslims and the Taliban and Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. Yep. And then in contrast, there's Putin. Putin, that genocidal maniac who's actually, as far as I know, not actually carried out any genocide anywhere.
That's the big complaint that Russian society has with Putin is that he's not hard enough with the war that he's conducting, or the special military operation. They're saying, enough. The West is fighting us. NATO. I mean, they understand this is a war with NATO. They're saying NATO is is throwing everything they have at us, and we're fighting with both hands tied behind our back. But Putin did not want to destroy Ukraine, and he doesn't want to destroy Ukraine. It's obvious. That's not what he wants.
Yep. And I just want to reference, there's what you were saying about the Ukrainians making the Russian language illegal and discriminating against Russians and all things Russian. And just the other day, Putin was in a school addressing teachers in these new regions, talking about the valuing Ukrainian culture.
Yes.
I got to say, as a genocidal maniac, he's not doing very well. He scores pretty low.
Well, yeah, he scores very low. He's in negative numbers. But you know what? It's smart thinking, because if you're incorporating territories into the Russian Federation, you don't want to build a society on hate, which is what they did with the west of Ukraine over the past God knows how many decades. The Ukrainian identity that the U.S. was building over the past 10, 20 years was an identity that was anchored in one thing: the hatred of Russians. That was what bound the people together. When they could have picked so many positives to create a Ukrainian identity or Ukrainian culture, but the West, the collective West, they wanted the powers that be to focus in on the hatred of Russia. How are we going to build a culture? We're going to build it on the hatred of these people. They did it.
Right.
You can't build a society on that. You have to respect the culture, respect the language, and try to get people, like what Putin was saying with the teachers, try to have them understand that your language, your history, your culture is welcome here. It's welcome here.
Which points to the diversity of cultures and ethnicities and religions within Russia, because you got the I don't know all the groups, right, but the Inuit over on the Far East, you've got the Chinese type Russians, right, in
Chechens
or whatever, the Chechen, you've got the Muslims in the southwestern part as well, not Chechens,
Tatars,
and then the Eastern Orthodox Christians for most of it, right? So it's a massive country with an incredible diversity of peoples that, as far as I don't know much about Russian history, didn't commit genocide on their own people, on those that were there, like the Americans did.
Well, the Soviets, the communist regime, yes, that was bad.
They did.
That was bad. That was bad. That was a horrific, hard time. But it was that was an ideology that wanted to wipe away religion and culture. I mean, that was their ideology.
Oh, like the Great Reset now, like the WEF now.
Exactly. Their ideology was, you're not going to be you're going to be this blank slate number, cog in the machine.
You will own nothing.
You will own nothing and be happy. That's the promise. That's always the promise.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not only you will own nothing, you will be nothing. You will be nothing.
Well, let me take it back to Putin again, right? So there hasn't been a reaction to the continued attacks on Donetsk and Lugansk regions. Well, Donetsk is a city. I keep confusing them, but on these regions, right, in the formerly Eastern Ukraine, they've continued with the attacks and the killings and the murder of civilians and the bombing of civilian infrastructure, which doesn't make the Western media, but you can find it in Russian media for sure, and also independent media, which is my preference to go to. And then he's not acted rashly. And if I think about how the Russians operated in Syria, they didn't act rashly there either. And Putin didn't. And in the discussion that you had with Alexander on, I think, Friday's video, or maybe the one today, it was a shorter video where you were talking about how come they haven't reacted. It's just very, very quiet. And then Alexander Mercouris suggested that it could display the Russians are just very confident. They know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking something, and this is so off the wall, right? But I suppose it's my own spin on it. I don't know much about Putin's childhood or his history or anything. But he does seem to me he's very measured. He's very smart. he must have had a good childhood, as far as I can tell. unlike Saddam Hussein, right, who was brutalized by his father, physically abused by his father, and then physically abusing all of Iraq. But there's a thing in social work, in child development, called impulse control. I don't know if you know about the Stanford experiment. You take these toddlers. They took these toddlers, and they gave them like a cookie or some sweets and stuff, right? And said, okay, I'm going to leave you at the table with these sweets. Don't touch them until I come back. And then you can have extra if you don't touch them. And they filmed them. And the little kids are squirming, doing everything, sitting on their hands or crossing, not to reach out, right? And it's a test of impulse control. And it is one of the strongest indicators for success later on in life. That ability to restrain your impulses, to not act rashly. It certainly happened to me, Alex. I'm in an argument with somebody, or with my wife, and don't say that, don't say that. And boop, I said it, and it didn't help things. It just made stuff worse, right? And then if I contrast with how Americans have acted, or the British, or the West have acted in war, with just retaliation, no impulse control, no opportunity to think and actually consider and play the long game. And I just wonder how, because I think you know more about Russian culture and history and society than I do, how that plays in, because that would be there for Russia. It's never been colonized. It's other than internal colonization. But it's had that stability, that longevity, that sense of itself in the way that Iran has or Japan has, because they've never been colonized either. Anything is that useful to you? Is it?
No, I mean, the Russian culture is a civilizational culture, like Iran, for example. Like you said, Iran these are civilizational cultures that go back hundreds, thousands of years, right? But Putin's response is it's hard to figure out. On the one hand, I have a really hard time figuring him out as to how he's going to respond. But on the other side, it's like we all kind of know that he's going to play the long game and be patient. It's kind of, and I think we have a hard time reconciling that, because most of us would not act like him. Or our first, like impulse control, our first impulse would be, oh my God, they took out the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. Well, we're going to take out, their building over there. But he's quiet. He hasn't said anything. He's playing everything very close to his chest with regards to the plan. Some people have doubts. Some people say he has no idea what he's doing. That's why he's being so quiet. Other people say he's supremely confident. We don't know. But I remember, like Abraham Lincoln, I think he said that when people would anger him, he would write a letter and put out all of his anger, express all of his emotions and all his vitriol and his anger. If people wronged him, he would write it, put everything down on paper, and then he said he would just put it right back in his drawer, in his cabinet, and put it away, and then wait a day or two. Yeah. And he says almost all the time, he would never send that letter and just tear it up, and that was it. Yeah. And I think that's Putin in a way. I'm sure he's human, and he has the impulse, and he sees his country's attacked. And he's probably saying, I've got all of these missiles and all this might, and I could I could deal with Ukraine in a matter of hours. But let me put those emotions into the dresser drawer. And,
which reminds me of the process between 2014 and the start of this war, or the escalation of this war, because it really started in 2014 with the Ukraine attacking the breakaway regions. But how measured and controlled and patient the Russians were, saying, okay, let's work this out with the Minsk one. Okay, let's do Minsk 2. Okay, what about a treaty? Let's have a security conference. Let's work this out peacefully. So imagine it will be the same pattern, but I so want this to end.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone wants this to end, but these guys on both sides, on all sides, from the U.S. to China to India and Russia and Turkey, whatever, all these countries, all these leaders, they're privy to information that we just don't have.
Yeah.
And so they probably see things very differently as to timelines and how this is going to play out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can think of no better way than keep up to date with what's going on is by checking in with your 3 channels. And then people should also become members of locals.duran.com and stuff, and then they can interact with other people through the forums that you have there and stuff. Alex, is there anything else you want to say before we finish up?
Just thank you very much once again for having me on.
You're always welcome.
Thank you. And that's it. I don't have anything else. I'm a pretty quiet guy, so I mean, I don't have anything else. I listen more than I talk. So.
That's right. And you've probably got another half a dozen videos to edit and upload.
Tonight, I'm going to go grab some food, and I'm calling it an evening.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, really, really great. And you and I will have a date in London, okay? And maybe you, me, and Alex. I'll travel up because I'm not actually in London, but I'll travel up.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
I know some great curry houses in London.
Let's do it.
Let's
do it.
Alex, thank you so much. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the link below. Anything you want to know, go subscribe to their channels. And between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with some really smart analysis. Go watch the Duran channels. All the best. Bye-bye.